Welcome to the Mental Health Raw and Open podcast with your host, Jody Betty.
Hi, and welcome to the Mental Health Raw and Open podcast. My name is Jody. I'm your host. And today we are doing part 2 with my dear friend, Dr. Bob Beare. Dr. Bob, I'm so glad you could come back on, my friend. Thank you.
Hi, Jody. Now we
How
have
you doing?
to behave, right? Before we started recording, we were saying some pretty wild stuff there. So now we have to straighten up and be professional. Is that
No, we
all?
don't do that. We don't do that around here, man. We fly off the cuff.
All right, good, because I don't know how to do professional anyway. So
Yeah,
that works out well.
me too. It works out perfectly. How's everything in your life? You doing okay?
I'm doing great today. I don't know if it's the pot of coffee or the beautiful weather in Austin, Texas, or you know, I'm living in a phase of my life where I have less problems. I'll just say that. I used to have a shit show causing shit show causing shit show on top of shit show. And now I just have sort of reflections on the shit show.
Well, that's a good thing. That's huge
It is.
progress, right?
I'm grateful for it, man. And I'm not cavalier about that. I am grateful for the way my life is today. And also hanging out with you. It's always fun. So
Yeah, and you know what? You did a lot of hard work to get to where you are, not only like sharing your knowledge, but your own personal work that you had to do, you know? So that's
yeah.
awesome that your life is, less shit.
Yeah. And it's not because I'm a good person or diligent or disciplined or anything like that. It's because I was almost dead and I decided, which road? All right, I'm going to stay alive. And and then I was like forced to do the inner work. Are you kidding me? I
Yeah,
didn't say, "Hey, thank you for helping me look at my old wounds and how they
yeah.
were passed to me through generations." And oh, yes, it's a great study. No, I did not approach it like that. It was like, oh, I either do this or I die.
I've been like that quite a few times, and people often ask me, like, well, how did you get through that, or how did you, survive all those attempts, and to throw the dark humor in. I'm obviously not very good at it, so that's one reason to quit doing it. And second of all, it's just like, you got to choose life. That's the only way forward is slowly but surely, and just waking up every day and doing
Yeah.
something that's good for you. And you know we're both trauma survivors, and it's unfortunate with trauma that we have to carry this like backpack of rocks full of like all these traumas that happened to us through our life. And we didn't cause any of them, but yet we're entirely responsible for taking those rocks out, smashing them into bits, and
Yep.
making them more manageable chunks.
Yep. Thank you. There's a good the phrase in there that now it's our bag to deal with is
Yeah,
so important. And it sounds like a little bit of victim blaming or whatever. When I hear myself say that to myself, it's almost like pull up your bootstraps, quit blaming them, and don't be a victim. Yeah, it's not that. It's not that. It's all right. It's it's uh it's if I want freedom, I've got to shift my mind from they did it to me. Really, I have. It's just an equation. The blaming stops the healing, and I love the blaming part. Honestly, I like the being resentful and having that adrenaline hit. Eventually I get tired though enough, and then I surrender, and then I hit the grief pocket, and then it doesn't matter whose fault it is, and the rocks that you're referring to start crumbling. That's how it goes. But sometimes we have to do the railing against the sons of bitches for a while, and
yeah.
that does start. We get tired of the railing, and then we surrender, and we find that grief pocket. If we're in the presence of people who are doing the work, that's a big piece right there. You got to be around people doing the work. Like with you, I could just fall on the floor and crumble. I'm very clear about it. You would only just hold space and send love to me. You would not try
Yeah.
to fix me. You would not try to educate me. You would not try to get me out of my feelings because you know that I'm doing my healing work. And the other thing is, most of the world has unresolved pain under the surface. And when someone else is in pain, they want to fix it so that they don't have to feel that inner anxiety of their own. So it's tricky to find some folks that are doing the work. However, once you find your way into the healing world, there's a lot of us in there.
There truly is, and there's so much information because there's nothing linear about healing, so everyone's coming at it from like 1,000 different aspects, and you can always pick up little tidbits and little gems here along the way, listening to people share their stories. Like in your space, I always listen, and I'm just like, oh yeah, that hit home or this hit home, right? And it's like-minded people who have suffered all sorts of different traumas. But I think with trauma, it doesn't matter what the trauma is, the end results filter down into the same actions, the same type of beliefs, the same reactions, right?
Yeah. And who to thunk? I always say that. Who to thunk it on the twit? Who
Yeah,
would have who
right?
would have thought that on Twitter, which is what you were just referring to, right, with the space that we do on Wednesday
Yeah,
afternoons, which
yeah.
if your listeners hear this, I don't know, you can probably find it through Jody or me.
6
Uh,
p.m. Wednesday nights. No, 7 p.m. Wednesday nights. No,
in your
6 p.m. Oh,
well,
my time.
it's 5 Central, but it's in the afternoon. And if you follow at Dr. Bob Beare or Healing, let's see, you are
At starting anew.
yeah, starting a new 23 or something like that, isn't it? What is it?
Good God, I don't even
You
know.
have a
Starting
number
anew.
after it. I had trouble finding. What
13.
is
It
it?
has to be 13.
13.
13.
Yeah. So anyway, you'll be able to find your way to the space, which is an amazing thing that we do for an hour and 15 minutes on Wednesday afternoons. Who would have thought that genuine uh, vulnerability and openness and trading experiences around healing from a somatic perspective? That's the name of the space. Uh, Trauma, a somatic uh, conversation. I was trying to think of the name of it, but yeah. Anyway, finding people that are on the path is so important. I hammer away at it. Sometimes my colleagues, the two Amy's that mess around with me a little. Oh, there goes Dr. Bob again on that support thing. But for me, that's what it took. I was doing the tough guy for many years. I was doing the tough guy, lone wolf, figure it out on my own, and don't get in my way of my way that I want to do my life. And that's the way I rolled until I was about 35. That was my psychology. That was my true north. I knew that
Mhm.
that was right. I knew that that was the right way to be because, my dad handed me the tough guy thing. He said, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, which, by the way, for your listeners, is a physical impossibility.
Yes.
Trying to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But and I was trying to fix everybody because I grew up in a household where there's quite a bit of craziness, and I was trying to be the good boy to calm it down, and then I turned into the little theater boy, little Bobby. Oh, look at him, so talented. So I became all these things, which actually have served me. I'm pretty tough, actually. I can I made it here, right? And also
Yes.
I've made a living in the theater. So that's about, but those things are not the 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 center of me. I've had to hang out with folks like you, Jody, and just cry until I get down, cry or laugh or whatever emotional discharge I need to do to get to the genuine place in me. And the genuine place in me is much quieter, much more still, enjoys just leaning up against a tree. But when I do it, sometimes my dad's voice says, "Yeah, you're going to make a lot of money at that." And then I have to breathe and I'll lean up against the tree again.
Yeah,
So
it's
that's been
it's
it.
it's crazy, the things that parents say that they're not that they're doing anything wrong. It's just that, certain things or certain criticisms for some reason, especially if they're repeated, they're just like, they become like from this external voice and they turn into like this internal voice that we have to live with for like so long, and basically just learn to turn the volume down from 10 to 1 or to off if possible, because you know, it change the way you look at the world. It changes the way you react to the world. Like,
Yep.
generational trauma is it's a difficult thing.
Yep. And we can't fix our lineage, right? We can't like, you can't transport me back there
Yeah.
and get my grandfather, whose father was an alcoholic, and he kicked my great grandfather out of the house when my grandfather was 15, I think. And then
Oh
he
my
took
gosh.
care of his 5 siblings. So he had no teenage, that's just one of the thousands, right, in our history. Thousands of moments like that are still in our bodies. It got passed along. It's in that we're not going to go back and fix all that. We
Yeah.
can't transport back there. However, we have this moment right here. And the most recent uh, transfer of the trauma happened in our life from the third trimester to 8 years old. And we can actually get at that. It's an interesting dynamic. I've been paying attention to Dr. Bruce Lipton's work lately, and he talks about it like this. So, from the third trimester to 8 years old, we are in what he calls a theta state, a theta brain state, which is somewhat like hypnosis. Like, when, I don't know if you ever went to a hypnosis show, or if you know anybody that has done hypnosis.
I do, yeah.
Yeah. And there's a, there's a thing where you get your brain in a certain place and you are suggestible. I mean, people will do some crazy acting like chickens. Um,
Yeah.
and then all you got to do is say, uh, bird feed. And then they're acting like chicken. I mean, it's amazing. And it's a thing. We are so suggestible from that theta brain state. Most of our childhood, we are in that state. We are under hypnosis. Everything that happens, everything we see, everything that is modeled, especially if anything that's very strong, conflictual, or there's very strong feelings attached to it, go in deeply and get ingrained in us and become the truth of the world for us. We have been indoctrinated into this rhythm. And if there's like really shocking things in there, or really incongruent things, or expected to be something that is just not right, we start living that. And then some of us wind up being, if there's sexual abuse or physical abuse, if that's happening, that's some serious redirection of our entire being.
Yeah.
And then eventually we hit that wall. The lucky ones of us hit a wall, as opposed to just living a half dead life.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
lucky ones of us hit a wall and then find some support, right? And then we can start feeling the feelings that were authentic, that got put away, that got put in the basement, that got packed away, right? And it's not easy, because
Yeah.
those feelings are the ones that the clinical world, the popular world, likes to refer to as the negative feelings. That's
Mhm.
helpful for me to do my grief work and my anger work, and to own that I'm scared when the world is saying how negative it all is. Yeah, it's not negative. It's reclaiming who I am.
Absolutely. And like for me, my trauma started, as you know, like first, second trimester, because my birth mother never stopped drinking or doing drugs.
Mm.
So when I was born, I was technically drunk, and I had to go through withdrawal and everything as an infant. And I went through like my stage in my 20s of like 18, 19, 20. I drank a bit, but never, like, I mean, not that I never got drunk, but it was a few. I can count the number of times on my hand, because I couldn't handle that. That little conscious guy that stays on your shoulder and says, "Hey, don't do something really stupid,"
Yeah.
right? Well, if I had to drink or got drunk, that little conscious guy was like long gone, left back at the bar kind of thing,
Mm.
right?
Right.
And And so for me, it became a non-option. I didn't like how I felt, and I wonder if that has anything to do with, you know, being under the influence of drugs and alcohol while I was inside and when I was, had just come out.
Yeah. Yeah. So who knows exactly how this stuff affects us, but yeah, we're numbed out to who we are, whether it's through uh, drugs, alcohol, or the behaviors that we do. There's lots of ways to adjust our chemistry to survive, and our parents did it. Our parents, our caregivers, and theirs before them have been medicating themselves to themselves for centuries, and that's what
Hmm.
you know, we're doing a lot more healing than just for ourselves, and we're putting ripples into the ocean that we don't even know every time we bypass this cultural uh, blockade to doing the healing. There's so much of it. Is it like get disciplined, get strong, fight, and then when those of us who know that that's bullshit, take a breath, surrender, start feeling, start healing, start reclaiming who we really are. But you pointed directly at something that's really important. We can't just launch into it. The first step is to take a look at our dependencies. I hate to use this next word. Everybody take a breath, brace yourself. Addictions, right? Nobody
Yeah,
wants to
yeah.
say, I've been on, I've met with three people today, not in therapy, but for other reasons, who seem to, because they know who I am, they seem to need to explain to me that, oh, I'm not alcoholic. Oh, I'm not an addict. Oh, I'm not that bad. I'm not. Yeah, who gives a shit how bad you are or what? Have you done a bunch of? My dad has a definite. My dad, who's gone now, who was a alcoholic, but never called himself that. But that's beside the point. That's one of the things in the addiction world. You kind of have to come to that yourself. Nobody's gonna.
Yeah.
But my dad had the solution to this in the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistics Manual, the psychiatry book, which is really designed to by the pharmaceutical companies to deliver pharmaceuticals. But
Yeah.
there's some stuff in there. There's if you want to diagnose an addiction, there's an 11 there's 11 questions that you have to answer, and usually three or four of them you're probably dependent. Five or six you're probably so. But my dad had a shortcut version of that, and it was if it's causing you problems, you've got a problem.
Right. Right.
And then I have to look alcohol, drugs, codependency. Am I trying to fix everybody? Am I working my ass off? Am I trying to get somebody? Am I trying to get approval in some way? And how about the love thing? Can I just get her to love me? And how about the sex acting out thing? And how about the tech thing? On and on and on. The ways that we use to self-medicate our trauma are are the big thing that needs to be addressed first, and it takes
Yes.
surrender and get off this topic of I'm not that bad. Oh no, I don't use that much. Oh, I only drink this much. Will you quit telling me what you're not and start telling the truth so
Yes.
that we can get some support to let go of the counterfeit adjustment of our chemistry so we can get to our actual chemistry, and we don't want to because it hurts. There's pain in there. For some of us, the drugs, alcohol, and acting out stopped working, and that was my case. And I'm grateful that I stumbled into a bunch of people that were doing recovery work and deep healing work.
Yes, absolutely. Me too. Like, I have a friend and she was dating this dude and totally toxic, alcoholic, abusive, the whole nine yards. And, finally she left him and I supported her through the whole thing. And then, she like mentioned that, she's hanging out with him again. And I'm just like, and
Oh,
she's like, oh, well, he's not an alcoholic anymore. He's been to therapy for 3 months. I just about dropped, like my face must have just like dropped to the floor. I picked my jaw up and I'm like, what? Ask anybody who carries a chip or goes to anything. If you're an alcoholic, you're always an alcoholic.
yeah,
You don't just get rid of being an alcoholic with
yeah,
3 months of therapy, or else there wouldn't be alcoholics
yep.
or dependents,
Yeah, I don't know when this is coming out, but my newsletter that's coming out this week, so it'll be already in the archives of my website at bobbeare.com. Uh, but this one is titled "The Pickle Problem." Why? Let's see, what did I name it? Why willpower is a temporary fix. So those of us that have done chemistry adjustment on ourselves recreationally, right? That's a good one. I'm just going to use it recreationally or whatever the hell it is, or behavior. Yeah, whatever we're doing to adjust ourselves, right? We used to be a cucumber, and then we did it long enough and became a pickle. And like you just
Yes.
said, once a pickle, always a pickle, and without a lot of support. And the idea that some therapist is going to cure somebody of alcoholism is absolute. Any therapist that thinks they're going to do that, to me, that's one of the uh, biggest ethical problems in our world, and that is that there's some psychiatrist or some therapist or some clinical intervention that's going to address addiction. It is not a thing. It cannot be done. They found out in 1935 that there is a solution. The only solution for an addict is another addict, and there's actually deep program of depth that they have to be that actually Dr. Carl Jung's work is beneath a lot of the work that needs to be done in order to transcend. And we only transcend our addictions one day at a time. It's very cliche because it's true. Now, also inherent in in that little story that you just told is one of the biggest misunderstandings, and that is, okay, well, he's a bad alcoholic, and I can't stop being with this bad alcoholic, but there's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
There is no strong. The only other addiction that's as strong as the use of drugs is being a person that enables another person to keep using drugs. It is
Yeah.
an addiction in itself that needs uh, ex, uh, direct surrender, support, and to do some deep inner work in order to let go of these. It's a pattern for folks. They grew up with dysfunction, and then they're going to choose more dysfunction and try to tell you
Yes.
that they're fine. No, it's this bad alcoholic. He's the bad one. There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing
Yeah.
inside of me that needs to be healed, and I don't need any support. It's actually funny in one way and killing people in another way. So it's not
Yeah.
that funny.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially
And
parents. Just one more thing. I've created 3 or 4 different family programs in addiction centers. The family drops off their kid who's acting out. Said, "Please fix my kid," right? And then they're invited back to the family program. We spend 3 days trying to tell them, you've been enabling. You've been like telling him, "Oh, I'm never going to give you money again if you," and then you give him money, and then you do this and that, and absolutely enabling this kid to use. And some 1 out of 10 parents like get it and say, "Oh man, I need to get some help myself." The rest just rubber band right back to the same enabling
yeah,
behavior.
yeah, absolutely. And it's again that generational thing, right? It's just like if you don't fix your own shit, you are going to pass it to your kids. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no like miraculous way that, none of it's going to hit your kids. It's just a fact. And, you know, previous generations, I think, they just everything that happened got swept under the rug, and it was a very much don't talk about it. For me, even growing up, it was like, okay, well, the beatings happen at home, but don't ever say anything about it outside because it's a family secret, and we have to present like we're in a nice family going on a nice vacation and everything else. Meanwhile, there's horror and hell at home, right?
Yep.
So it was wearing that mask a lot as a child too, just like trying to discern like who am I? Because at one moment I'm trying to protect my mom from being beat, and then the next moment I want to go and play with my friends because I'm just a kid. And then I've got soccer, which was like one of the things that helped keep me alive during this whole time. And I was used to, blame my parents and say, oh, you didn't know better, or you could have done better, you could have done better. But at the same time, you can't do better if you don't know better. My father is a toxic narcissist. He sees nothing wrong with himself, nothing. Like he's just charming and happy-go-lucky, this great guy everyone thinks, right? So when I go out and, publicly say, no, he's this and he's that, and he behaves in this way, people are like, "What? Your father? No way!" Like he's so charming.
Yeah. There's so much in everything you just said. I don't know. There's 4 podcasts in what you just said,
Yeah,
and it's so good, Jody. You've done so much good work to have that much insight, and the the whole family secrets topic is just so big, right? When people come into my workshop, the Deep Waters Experience, it's a 3-day intensive that we have here in Austin. We do about 7 of them a year. And when people come in, we do a screening process, and then there's a thing at the beginning where we sit, the elders or the leaders of the weekend sit with folks on the way in just to have a little conversation so they know what they got themselves into, and also to just find out a little bit more. And then for many of them, especially the younger men, let me just say this. Well, it's not just that. I don't know. I don't know what the demographic is, but a large majority of folks, when we start talking about trauma, uh, they immediately say the following phrase: "Oh, I'm from a good family." As if the two things have anything to do with each other.
exactly.
For me, yes, I'm from a good family. Okay, the kids used to come over to my house to escape their house. Are you kidding? It was my mom was like, "Oh, let me cook for you. Let me do this," and my dad was, fixing shit for everybody, and it looked better to my friends than their house. But
Yeah,
there was a lot of dysfunction going on in there and behind the doors, and yes, I'm from a good family. And what does that have to do with anything? As a little kid, there was things that happened that have put me on a trajectory away from my authentic self, and that's the that's the turning point for healing right there. When I can say to myself, it doesn't matter whether it's a good family or a bad family or not. It is no longer relevant. What I need to do is look at reality, what actually happened. It doesn't matter if it's good, bad. The culture thinks it's shameful. Okay, I don't give a flying fuck.
hmm,
I'm going to do my healing work. And, you know, sometimes I think about it. My good old mom, my good old dad. Sometimes I say the shit that happened to me, and somebody somewhere is going to think I'm blaming them. I'm not at all. I'm just trying to live my life boldly, and I've got to talk about what happened if I want to
yeah,
do that.
yeah. I think, for trauma survivors, there's so many years of living in silence and living in fear and living with the, thought that, oh, if I say something, no one's going to believe me. Or like for me, my parents didn't know about my sexual abuse, and my mom died before I had the chance to tell her because my father, when I was 13, sat me down and said, your mother has cancer because of all the stress you caused her. Nothing to do with the 2 packs of smoke she smoked a day. I will just throw that in, right? That is
Mhm.
no whatever. But it was the stress that I caused her. So all of a sudden, I've been taking care of this woman since I was 5, trying to protect her from being beat, and now she's got basically a terminal illness, and now I have to sit with that responsibility that I caused this. It was
Yeah.
just like it didn't even make sense to me at 13. Like I literally started like researching like what causes cancer when I was 13 because it was like it can't just be me. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So dad was uncomfortable and trying to discard his discomfort. And that's what happens. We adults, at different levels. That's a pretty high level of shitty parenting right there.
Yeah,
Okay.
he got a good
And
degree in shitty parenting, like
yeah,
a
we're not
master's.
we're not going to change him, so whether he's good or bad doesn't matter. But what happened was what landed on you is that you're responsible for everything now, right? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
which you had to work on and cough up, and now you've just shared that with a bunch of people out loud who are also dragging around the big bag of uh, self blame, and that's what we do now, right? We found out that the shit that got handed to us is just not ours. At the Deep Waters weekends, I have everybody say that this is pretty powerful. And if your listeners are in the car, there's nobody listening, and you know that you got some shame in your body. Shame is the byproduct of trauma. Here's a good statement. You ready? I like to do it sometimes, but it's a little embarrassing to just do it out loud. You don't want to do it at the grocery store, probably. But, it's not my shame.
It's not. It
It's
truly
not
isn't.
my shame is a very powerful thing to say to yourself. I can feel it in my body. It's not my fucking shame. I can feel it coming out of my body when I say it. It's not mine.
Yeah.
It was handed to me, and then I chose to hold on to it, and now I'm choosing to let it go and live my life.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. For me, part of my healing journey has been like the last couple of years has been interesting because I didn't have a pre-trauma life. I just had like a trauma life. And so now that I'm, releasing some of that trauma, I'm actually like finding out more about myself and what, not other people's expectations, what expectations I want to set for me and what
Yes.
goals I want to set for me
Yes.
instead of living, with this repetitive voice in your head that's saying, oh, you're not good enough to do a podcast. You're not good enough to
Yep.
do this, right? Like, fuck that. I've had enough of it, right? You get to a point you're just like, fuck it.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter.
I was just meeting with a coaching client today who was telling me a lot of stuff, to which I just leaned forward and said, "Hey, just be yourself. Tell your story. You're a genius. Trust it." And he started crying. He said, "Oh, yeah, thank you." And I've had to have a bunch of people lean forward into me and say, "Bob, quit waiting for everybody else, or trying to get somebody to save you, or trying to be like somebody else, or holding yourself back to, you know, for because you'll be too arrogant or something." You know what? Nobody
Hmm.
cares. That's narcissistic in itself to think that, oh, if I'm too bold, I'll hurt something. Nobody gives a shit. They're paying attention to their own stuff. I'm going to live my life, and let it flop where it flops. And, uh, success might happen, or success may change its face for me. And suddenly it's like, whoa, I'm wildly successful, but it has nothing to do with what I used to think success was. So
Yes, absolutely.
the deeper we go. And so that is why my last book named itself, before I even wrote the book, Stop Doing Shit You Don't Want to Do. Because that is the key right there. If I'm noticing that I'm doing something, I'm being nice to somebody I don't really want to be, I'm answering the phone when I don't want to be, I'm going to work at this place that I know that I don't want to be, and on and on and on and on, and start noticing it and having it hurt to continue to do it, is trauma healing work. That is the first sign. Now, of course, there's some things we need to do toward our vision that we may not want to do. Sometimes I have to answer emails or something, but I have way less of the long list of shit that I have to drag myself to. I run on enthusiasm these days, not discipline.
I love that.
We do not have to whip ourselves into shape if we have offloaded these messages that tell us we have to be something other than what we are. That's the
Hmm.
pattern. We have to recover, get our chemistry back, do the healing work to offload the negative messages about ourselves, and then we start to see reality, and we start to be able to build our vision. And then Jody can lean forward and have a goddamn podcast on any topic she wants to have it on.
Exactly. Oh my God, I see your pup in the background.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
There's
cute.
my pup. I don't think we're doing a video version of this.
Nah,
Maybe we will.
no, no one else sees your pup, but I see him.
Yeah. but I'd have to comb my hair and shit if we did that. So that's
Yeah, I know. I felt the same too, so it's all good. Yeah, it's crazy, right? Because like the dynamic of searching inside, it's like you ask all these questions, you wait for other people to answer them, thinking that they have the answers for you, or that if you save someone, then you'll be saved, or all that stuff that we think that's going to happen. And every time that I can like silence my mind enough, if I ask myself the question, the answer is in my question if I dig deep enough.
yeah. That's one of the. It's a little therapist trick right there when you get a client who's, well, what about this, Doctor Bear? Or what if I do? Just take a shot at answering that yourself. Just try
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And then,
So I appreciate therapists that aren't like textbook driven and are more, attached to themselves, like more open with themselves, because it for me gives me a level of comfort and safety. But B, I can read the same books that every psychiatrist can read.
yeah,
I'm not a stupid person. I can get it, right? I don't I always say it's funny, you go into a psychiatrist's office and they have like 57 degrees all around the wall and four big bookshelves with every psychological book, and you go into a a therapist's office and they have like their 3 or 4 degrees on the wall and art everywhere, right? Like it's just the upper echelon almost, in psychiatry, thinking they're the upper echelon and they have all the answers. And to be honest, I've never spent more, even after suicide attempts, than 20 minutes with a psychiatrist in my entire life. And every time they talk, I'm just like, what are you saying? Freud's dead. I already know what he said. Like,
yeah, yeah. That's I've been in the clinical healing. When I almost died and then came out of it, and then found myself in the middle of the men's movement in the '90s when Robert Bly and Michael Mead and all of those guys were. The women's movement said, we're not taking this shit anymore. And then, like a decade later, the men's movement was, we better look within. And, you know, we did started a lot of rhythm of things that are in the culture these days that are not attributed to that, but men doing healing work. I'm grateful that I found my way into that. And it was like rooted in a lot of Joseph Campbell's work and a lot of Carl Jung's work, really about looking within at our own emotional rhythms in our bodies. And also I had the great fortune to stumble into 12-step recovery and get through my resistance to that very early. And a lot of people don't know that Carl Jung's psychology is deeply embedded in that, in 12-step recovery. So it's been a pretty good exploration for me. And every once in a while I've run into a therapist or a person in the clinical world that is doing their own inner work. It's rare. And
it is rare.
it's very rare, and it's for most of my colleagues, it's a place to hide out. We get a little bit of information and then decide that we're going to fix the world. It's a very codependent world, the clinical world. And then, it's not everybody. There's a few folks. And that's why when folks say, well, how do I make sure I find a good, well, there's a couple of ways. You got to find out if they're doing their own work, doing their own inner work, or if they're just fixing people every day.
Hmm.
And one way, here's pretty easy way. If their word somatic is in their profile anywhere, somatic means that they're probably done some somatic experiencing work or they've done some healing work in their body. The other word is Jungian. Anybody that has studied Jung has already at least started to look at their shadow. That part of the part of us that we like to hide, repress, and deny. Yeah, the clinical world is uh, problematic.
Yeah, it is. My last therapist I had was like literally put the word psycho in psychotherapist. Like she was like doing reverse sessions where she would make me listen to her. And then she'd go on and on about all these like toxic and narcissistic things that she was. And I don't know how to respond. I'm the client, right? I don't know if I'm supposed to be telling you, dude, don't do that. That's ridiculous.
Mhm.
And why is this happening in the first place, right? And she played a lot of like manipulative games. Like she had no boundaries, so she would like text and then all of a sudden say, "Oh, you're texting too much, so you can't be a client anymore." Like, and then 3 months later she'd like try and reel you back in again, and I was just like,
Ugh.
I recorded her along with like 5 other people, and it was like out of control. I was furious. I said, I have trauma from seeing you.
Right. Well, that's one way to see it, but there's another way to see it, which is a little bit challenging for you but for me too, because I have a very similar experience with a coach quite a few years ago, and with reflection, I could see it's just like the relationships that I've been in. I found that crazy motherfucker because
Yeah.
it felt like home. Unconsciously, I knew that this was just like my original caregivers, an absolute shit show. But I had to get some distance from it to see that. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
because there's
Yeah.
lots of idiots out there. Are you kidding?
I She reached out to me when I was in like a time of desperation with the exact right words,
Yeah,
exactly what to say, and I was just like, "Oh God, someone hears me."
yeah. Well, it's good. There's two things here, right? Can we hold more than one truth, Jody? Can we start holding more than one, or do we just have to slam into this is bad, this is good? No, I'm going to hold both of these truths.
Yeah.
One is uh, there's a lot of hurtful people, therapists, coaches, politicians, uh, lawyers, doctors, et cetera, et cetera. There's lots of hurtful people, and then can I also hold the universe is friendly, or does it have to be one or the other?
For me, I am learning to hold two truths because the truth is never absolute. It's kind of, in the middle of this black and white thinking pattern that I had for so long. It was either this or it was either that. And there was no shades of gray, although my cupboard is full of shades of gray, but there was no shade of gray. It had to be this or it had to be that. They had to be factual. And now I'm able to say, wait a second, hold on a second.
That's right. We don't have to, when we're early in recovery, we actually need that. I think there's some pretty firm bound. No, you will not treat me like that. No. I mean, we
Yeah,
have to, because a lot of us missed that stage of our childhood where we weren't allowed to do that, right? It's like, so now we have to like, no.
yeah,
But after a while, after we do some healing, we can just like choose our way out of bad situations.
yeah,
I call it curating the algorithm of my life. I just don't engage with that shit. I can sense it. It's just not going to work for me. I don't have to kill them off or judge them outwardly or spend a lot of time arguing about how bad they are anymore. I just choose another place, another person, another thing to put my attention on and let the algorithm of life take over. You know,
yes,
if
yeah,
I argue with my brother today about politics, I will invite more of that energy from the universe. And I'm not doing it.
yeah, yeah. It's so true. It's so true. And, you know, j- just a perspective change, just one tiny perspective change, being willing to, be able to hold that there is possibly something else. CBT, classic CBT, thoughts are not facts.
Yeah.
Right? Because most of our thoughts are emotionally based. They're not logically based. We have logical thoughts, obviously, but many of them are driven from an emotional mind. And I think that was the only part of CBT that, actually stuck for me was like when I first started it, like making that list with 2 columns saying, this is bullshit and this is blah, 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 and they suck and whatever else. And then
Yeah.
the actual like truth of what the situation is, like the facts. And then
Right.
I'd look at them and go, oh, well, these don't match up at all now, do they?
Yeah. It's very useful to pay attention to our thoughts and then reality test with them. And then also realize what emotion is driving it. It's very good. And it's temporary. That is a temporary, but useful exercise, because the emotions are driven by unresolved trauma in our unconscious. And we can't just fix our cognitions. We can't fix our cognitive framework by fixing our behavior. And we can't fix our behavior by changing our thoughts, at least sustainably. We can do it for a minute. It's like I can quit drinking for a minute. I've done it 1,000 times. I could quit. Yeah. So yes. And we have to change. We have to heal the deep stuff that we don't want to feel. And then when we come up and we change our cognitions, we're creating new neural pathways back toward who we truly are. We're not just doing battle against the lies. We're emerging as a more authentic expression of ourselves that's sustainable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people use cognitive behavioral stuff as the end game by itself without looking at what's driving the dysfunction, under what's driving the skewed behavior and cognitions. You got you like heal the roots, or the tree's gonna like look shitty up there on top.
Yeah. Yeah. So funny. My father actually said to me, he knew I was doing a CBT course. It was 8 weeks long. And then after the course was over, he was like, well, how did it go? Are you fixed? I was like, what do you mean am I fixed? He's like, well, you just had 8 weeks of this therapy that's supposed to fix you. And if it's not fixed you, then obviously you can't be fixed. And I was just like, what? Did you just say that? It's like,
Yeah,
what just came out of your mouth? No, I'm not fixed from 8 weeks of CBT therapy.
yeah,
But thanks.
yeah. No, I haven't removed your negative messages from my body yet, Dad. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, working on it, working on it. Absolutely. Absolutely. And the somatic thing is new to me too. So, it's very interesting. I've always been interested in the body trauma relationship because I've had all these like weird medical things in my life, and I went for every test under known to mankind and 80 different blood tests, and nobody. 2 years at this one clinic, and literally they said to me, "Oh, well, if you ever find out what it is, just let us know." I was like, what? Okay, I'll do that, right? 8 years later, nobody knows what it is, so I chalk it up to, it's stored trauma in my body, and it hasn't released yet because I don't know what else it could be, so that's what I'm going with.
Yeah. If all else fails, heal yourself. If all other ideas fail, why not go to those feelings that I've been avoiding, just in case those people are right who say, if you don't feel what's underneath the surface of you, it will manifest into physical problems, relationship problems, job problems, career problems. It will manifest in all kinds of external surface problems. So just in case they're right, it's a little bit like the God thing. Man, maybe they're right. Holy shit! Maybe there is some heaven place or something. Even though it sounds, but maybe I'll consider that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like they might be right. I don't know. It's the same thing
yeah.
with the healing work. Just in case Dr. Bob is right, just in case Jody's right that the real solution is diving in to the body and the healing and the pain that I've been avoiding if I want to fix the rest of the shit in my life. Maybe they're right. And one of the signs that it might be right is how much resistance I have to doing
Right. Yes.
it. Well,
Yes.
you know, that's, I think Jung has said several things. Uh, Anything that is unresolved within us will show up outside of ourselves, and we'll point at it and we'll say, "Oh, that's just fate." Yeah, that's just fate. Has nothing to do with what's inside of me. No, it always does, and that is the solution, is to go inside. But we live in a culture, we live in a species that is externally focused, and there's billboards right out, probably right down the street from me, encouraging me to look outside of myself for my solution. It's everywhere. We are not encouraged to go within
No.
anywhere. It doesn't make anybody any money, including the psychiatry world, the clinical world. It does not.
Big pharma.
Big pharma. It does not. It's not good for business for people to do healing work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sad but true. Like really, honestly.
Yeah,
Because it is exactly like that. It's like, when I first started and they wanted to put me on medications, and then, it was like, here,
yeah.
try this.
There's so many.
Oh, you feel more suicidal? Okay, we'll cut 'em off that one and we'll give you a new one. Well, 13 medications later, I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, this is ridiculous. My body's up and down. I'm going through detox and all the nasty side effects and everything. And I was like, this is ridiculous. You wouldn't just say to like, if someone has like breast cancer, you at least focus your chemotherapy or your radiation in the right area, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's good business. You don't want people, and I don't think people, the majority of people. I'm sure there's some CEOs of pharmaceutical companies that actually do think this way, but I don't think the practitioners themselves are thinking, "Here, let's keep them sick." No,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
they're not doing their own work, so that's all, and that's what they've been trained to do, and that's just how the
Yes.
business is, and you wind up with what do they say? What do they call the guy who's last in his class of medical school? Doctor. They call him doctor. So
Yeah.
there you have
Yes.
it. And so you're gonna, just think about it for a minute. You're not dealing with somebody who is like in a traditional culture, somebody from a history of shamanic healing, earth based reality, what actually works over a series of generations. And no, you're dealing with somebody who's infected by the shadows of our culture, right? It's a little
Hmm.
bit it's a
Hmm.
little bit like this misunderstanding that somehow the political system is going to manifest a quality human being to be at a high leadership position. No, what it does is absolutely brings the most superficial of all people to the surface, because
Yes.
what true leader from the heart would ever choose to be in that kind of a position where you have to absolutely sell yourself out completely in order to succeed. What good leader would ever do it? So we get used car salesmen to run the
Yes.
show, and we wonder what the fuck, how that happened. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. We in Canada are wondering what the fuck too. So our fingers are crossed up here.
yeah, man. It's here's the and that yeah, we could get on that train and get really upset over how bad it all is. And I'm just telling you, you and I both know we're not going to change them.
Nope.
All we can do is do our healing work and put some healthy drops in the giant ocean of shit show, the big shit show
Yes.
ocean. And
Yeah.
I just hope the planet survives, as at least as long as my daughter's around and she doesn't have too much distress about it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We always want better for, I don't have kids, but
Yeah.
I always want better for the younger generation. Some people always want better for their kids. And, I think your daughter is lucky to have a father who actually is doing his work and doing your shit. Like, it's impressive. And not just because, oh, you're like a strong dude that's like breaking down and doing stuff. Like, I admire that. I think that's one of the things I respect about you most is you're not afraid to cry. If you have repressed emotions, you'll just let them out. And that's how it should be. There's nothing shameful about it. There's nothing bad about it. It is so cathartically healing.
I almost shut it down last week. Were you in there last week? I think it like
Yeah, I was.
when that grief starts coming up, my neck and
Yeah.
my natural instinct is shut it down, make a joke or whatever. But I think last week in the space, I said, fuck it, I'm just gonna I'm just gonna let
Feel
it
your
let it
feels,
flow.
man.
And
Yeah.
Here's the right people will be attracted, and this is for anybody, and especially a bunch of guys we were told boys don't cry, right? So you want to be attractive? That's attractive.
Yeah.
That's attractive.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
and the right people will come toward us.
Hmm.
The people that are not right for us will atrophy as we become more and more authentic. It's not just for the
Yeah.
boys; it's for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Authenticity is the way. And I always say, like, I was a waitress twice and I sucked. I got fired both times and within a week because, like, I'm not like the lady yelled at me about her food and I was just like out of the top of my mouth. I can't even control it. I'm just like, I didn't cook it. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
And but I was a great bartender because you're coming to me, you're telling me your stories. I have to pour you a beer or a drink and listen.
Yeah.
I,
Well, I think we could probably solve all the world's problems and, probably solve the problem of addiction and trauma if we had like a little bit more time here, Jody. Think you and
yeah,
I could talk?
absolutely. Yeah, for sure. We'll have to do frequent podcasts, and by the end of next year, everyone will be fixed.
Yeah, man. This was so much fun. Thank you again.
Thank you. I always appreciate talking to you. I appreciate your time, and I love your personality. You're very warm, and you're funny, and I appreciate you and your knowledge, and I'm grateful that our paths have crossed, for sure.
Yeah, likewise. You've told your story in different places. All your folks know how to find all your stuff. Everything for me is at bobbeare.com. That's Beare. And I'm not trying to sell anything, but it's a building of a community. There aren't a lot of people talking about this stuff. So I really want to support anybody who's on this path of healing, especially from within. you know.
Yeah, yeah,
So let's connect.
absolutely.
Let's all stay
Yeah,
connected
follow
here.
Dr. Bob, everybody. Go to his website. He's got
Yeah,
so many blogs and information and stuff. You can sign up for his program, and we'll put all that stuff in the show notes for you.
great.
Okay, my friend.
Thank you. We'll see you soon.
Okay, take care. I'll see you tonight.
Yes. All right.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you for listening to the Mental Health Raw and Open podcast with your host, Jody Betty. If you enjoyed today's show, please give it a like and don't forget to smash that subscribe button. And if you appreciate the work I do, why not buy me a coffee? Details in the show notes. Today's episode was recorded and edited by Dorian Kent and produced by Jody Betty and Dorian Kent. This has been a Raw and Open production.